to start by thanking the morning staff for organising this conference and to acknowledge the daily miracle which the paper is and how important it is to our movement. Today I want to explore the shift in the balance theme with you, and I don't have a manifesto of solutions, but I hope between us we can take the discussion forward and beyond today be part of the change we so desperately need. There is a fundamental imbalance between capital and labour in Scotland, in the UK and most of the world, and this is a matter we know of design. Anti-trade union laws and capitalist economics have eroded the rights of workers and diminished our organisation. Trade union membership in the UK stands at 6.35 million, which represents 23.4% of the workforce. As Jane just said, public sector trade union membership is high comparatively at 52.5%, whilst it languishes at 13.2% in the private sector. In the UK, the share of income of the richest 1% of households has tripled over the last 4 decades, from 3% in the late 1970s to around 8% now. And this is often highlighted by the soaring rates of executive pay. It was shown that in just 3 working days in 2018, the UK's top bosses made more than a typical full-time worker earned in an entire year. The average FTSE 100 Chief Executive Officer collects £1,020 per hour for 3.926 million a year, and last year that rose by 11%. And the challenges we face are global. The International Labour Organisation reported in July of this year that the top 10% of workers across the world receive 48.9% of global wages, just under half, whilst the bottom 20% receive less than 1% of wages. And as our share of wages has reduced, so has the social wage, the social wealth we all benefit from. It's been slashed. Our public services are hollowed out by needless austerity. Over 40,000 jobs have gone in local government in Scotland alone, and the NHS has seen job losses by stealth, non-filling of vacancies, or the replacement of higher graded posts with lower graded ones. And I've worked for Unison for 22 years, and I've never seen the levels of in-work poverty that I see today. It is not uncommon for workers to go hungry because they just don't have the money for food. And staffing shortages and lack of resources mean services and workers are stretched beyond their limit. There is a crisis of Neil was talking about mental health, there's a crisis of poor mental health in our public services caused by austerity and poverty. And there's been much good work done on mental health and the stigma attached to it, and rightly so. But we find ourselves in Unison having to push back against some of the slogans, because it's not always okay to not feel okay. If overwork and low wages are making you mentally and physically ill, or often both, then that's not okay. So, as we've given up a Sunday to be here, we already know these are the inequalities we face. We face what I believe is important, is that we recognise increasingly workers are developing a profound sense that our society and economy isn't delivering a fair deal. It's our job in the labour and trade union movement to transform that alienation into organisation. To do this requires local, national and international responses. Locally, I think our movement needs to take a fresh look at trades councils. Their coverage, resourcing, capacity, organisation and impact, frankly, is patchy. We need to have a serious think about what we want from trade councils in 2020 and beyond. I believe they've got an important role to play in building inter-union solidarity, developing links in communities, tackling issues that Jane's highlighted in terms of people not knowing about unions, and providing political education. There's also, like Unison, like several unions, supports the People's Assembly, which aims to be a broad church unifying anti-austerity campaign, And in some areas like Fife and Dundee, there are local people's assemblies groups. However, there are many areas in Scotland with neither an active trades council nor a people's assembly group or a similar anti-cuts campaign. Take Moray, for example. I was speaking at the Unison branch AGM there earlier this year. A branch doing great work in the most difficult of circumstances. Moray Council has been on the verge of collapse, literally going bust, and it's introduced the most savage cuts in Scotland. It's run by a minority SNP administration. There's only one Labour councillor in Moray. Yet, from social media and looking on the internet, I can see there was active participation in the climate strike in places like Forres in Moray. The young are self-organising. Our new movement needs to be more nimble, flexible and responsive to garner that generation into the broader struggle between capital and labour. I don't have the answers, but we need to find a way to help unions in places like Moray build alliances, and I believe that revitalised trades councils must be part of this. On a national level in Scotland, we've been too timid on employment rights, and too much energy has been sucked up on the discussion on whether they should be devolved or not, and which inevitably leads into constitutional debates which suck up so much energy from the class struggle. And Jane has talked very well about the Institute's Charter of Workers' Rights, and it's a really great publication, and I encourage you to read it. I've certainly taken a lot from it. And Jane rightly said that the Scottish Government's fair work agenda is far too timid in Scotland. And if you want an example of that, you just need to look at Cornerstone, a large social care charity, which has de-recognised Unison, and we're having to go to a collective ballot to get back union rights. Cornerstone is entirely funded by public sector money, yet Fair Work Scotland de-recognised Unison. So it's far too meek and limited. It encourages good things and frowning them bad. But and as Jane rightly pointed out, we've seen the contrast between the Welsh Government under Labour and what the Scottish Government has done. Under Labour in Wales, they passed an act to set aside and disregard huge elements of the Trade Union Act, and that clearly hasn't been done in Scotland. So we can be self-critical of why Labour is on the back foot against capital, and taking time today to analyse where we are is important. But we must maintain confidence in the ability of our movement to adapt and respond. And we need to be honest about the Trade Union Act because it's had unintended consequences. It has been a spur to improve grassroots organisations by trade unions. The ballot thresholds have required unions to be more vigorous in their campaigning, more in touch with their membership and more creative. And you only need to look at the CWUs that Mark is here today. They're campaigning the Royal Mail to defend their Four Pillars agreement. There have been some great displays of collective action. My favourite is the video of a canteen full of posties turning their back on the corporate video that's been projected up on the screens. It's just a great sign and demonstration of collective action. And the CWU have used humour and creativity to great effect. And even in areas where ballots have been lost, the PCS unfortunately lost a ballot, but the activity that generated around the campaign has made the union much stronger. Now, in Unison, we know that workers will not secure the fair distribution of wealth by industrial means alone. That is why we have a political strategy, and in my union's case we're affiliated to the Labour Party. We need politicians fundamentally committed to shifting the balance by using the tools that are open to them today whilst fighting for better conditions tomorrow. Community wealth creation and public procurement are central to shifting the balance. Joe Cullinan's Labour administration in North Ayrshire is leading the way in this in Scotland. In Preston and North Ayrshire, we see Labour councils using the economic and social levers they have to develop their local communities. And Unison, and Neil touched on public procurement. We think public procurement at a Scottish Government level must follow the lead of councils in North Ayrshire. Unison's got a Food for Good charter, and we use it to promote the role of public sector in terms of food and its production and delivery. And we've made some important gains in that regard. But still, in the NHS in Scotland, we're committed to cook, freeze. I cover Argyll and Bute, and the local council there is working hard to promote local produce as part of developing the economy. But in Argyll and Bute, the meals in the hospitals come up by lorry from just outside Bristol. And we also have in Scotland, we've got a good food nation policy, but we have at the same time a crisis of obesity. And when I'm out and about working and visiting schools, I see at school at lunchtime, huge swathes of kids coming out of schools, crossing the road and going to eat unhealthy food. And that's bad for their diet, but it also stigmatises the wains that can't go across the road and are reliant on free school meals. And we need to have radical policies that involve our children in making their meals right from day one in nursery. That's not about job substitution, that's about supporting and training our kids. Because isn't decent food and the breaking of bread together a fundamental human right and social skill which we should be teaching our children in Scotland from day one? So part of shifting the balance must be a higher social wage, and that must be based on universalism. And I believe there is a mood for this. And we see this in the period poverty campaign. The Law in the Bog campaign to get free sanitary products in football grounds is a great example. So, Unison has been pursuing a whole range of issues around procurement in our public services from a host of angles. One that might not seem obvious is cotton. Cotton's a notoriously difficult product to track from field to fabric. But in many parts of the world, cotton production is reliant on child labour. So we've been challenging the Scottish NHS about the cotton it procures for its uniforms and bed linen. And the same, we've been using procurement issues to argue about minerals and metals that go into IT equipment, because much of them come from conflict zones and cause human damage and environmental damage. And we're also raising the issue about boycotting disinvestment in Israel around HP products and HP goods. So we need a fundamental shift in the priorities in this country. And in Unison Labour Link, we believe that can only come from a Labour government at the UK and in Scotland. And on Tuesday of last week, Jeremy Corbyn gave his speech to the Labour Party conference, and it's absolutely littered with policy announcements and commitments that will transform our country in a way we've not seen since the 1945 Labour government. Last year, trade union membership did rise by just over 100,000, which is clearly positive, but we have a mountain to climb. 0.5% of that 100,000 came, a 0.5%. Sorry, 0.5% of that 100,000 came from Eastern Barnshire Council, where workers last year took 4 days of all-out strike action against terms and condition cuts. If workers in Mackay and Bearsden can stand up and fight and win, we should have confidence that they can win anywhere. So in conclusion, I believe that there is no denying that we are at a low ebb locally and globally in terms of the balance of power between labour and capital. But there are signs and conditions, as Jeremy Corbyn said last week, that the tide is turning. Our movement can respond, as the Trade Union Act has shown. We know we need government to do what we need government to do to intervene in the economy. We have a generation of young people who, amongst them, in Scotland, already have thousands motivated to take action, to use the language and methods of our movement to improve the world. Young people are reminding us of and renewing our confidence in our maxim that we have a world to win. So thanks very much.